这论坛请来的来宾有G1航空首席 CEO Larry、美国众议院国防小组委员会主席 Ken、美国印太司令 Paparo 以及海军陆战队指挥官艾瑞克史密斯。
We are going to pivot back to the Indo-Pacific and particularly Taiwan. We heard a lot during the campaign about it's time to pull back from wars, it's time to not get involved. But what does that mean really for Taiwan and the ability to help them defend themselves? Admiral Paparo, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it begins with the policy for Taiwan, which is a policy that's now spanned for 52 years, and why it is so. And it really is so because of the extent to which the economy of the United States and really the economy of all the market democracies are intertwined. And the knock-on effects of conflict in the Western Pacific, the effects that it would have societally on the United States, is why it's so absolutely important to deter conflict in the United States, that the basis of the Taiwan policy is the first communique that the matter shall be resolved peacefully, the inverse of which is that conflict by use of force shall be deterred with strength. And that's why that is so important. In fact, just for an exercise, you might go into any large language model and say, what is the effect on the United States economy of conflict in the Western Pacific, and what is the knock-on effects for unemployment and deaths of despair? And you will see what the interests are for the United States of America in peace in the Pacific. And you'll see that it's hundreds of thousands of lives over 5 years. And that's the importance of peace through strength in the Western Pacific. And that's why the policy of this, in fact, it is really the Taiwan Relations Act, which is the remit of the Defense Department, that the department shall be ready to come to Taiwan's defense, and that the department will provide defensive weapons and defensive services. And then the third communique, which is a Reagan communique of the summer of '82, which is that the reduction of that will be proportional to the reduction of the militarization of the Taiwan Strait, and the inverse is true, is the basis of that. And so I think that is the approach into Taiwan, and to have no more wars is peace through strength. And that is what I am hearing from really universally here as we're making the transition.
And particularly with the National Defense Strategy, what haven't we realized from the last National Defense Strategy to be ready for 2027 right now? Like if 2027 happened right now and China did take action, what would be the outcome? Are we ready to help Taiwan defend itself? Are there necessary resources in theater? This can go pretty wide-ranging, but we have tied up our defense industrial base in supporting both Ukraine and the wars in the Middle East. So are we ready right now, or what needs to change?
I remain confident that we'd prevail in a conflict with the PRC over Taiwan. And in fact, the PRC also doubts their own ability to prevail in such a conflict. That's why they set the benchmark 2027 also. That doesn't negate that if they decided that there would have to be a war of necessity, they're going at tremendous risk to themselves for doing so. Our concern is that the margin, and the margin is expressed in risk of succeeding, in lost lives, in lost capability, in lost money, in lost time. Our concern is that margin is eroding as a function of the extent to which we are building the right capabilities and the extent to which the PRC is building the right capabilities. And over the last few years, we have made some great gains in certain key capabilities. And for instance is, and a lot of it is in partnership with Doug Beck and DIU, but Joint Fires Network, which is our ability to more effectively bring the joint force together on common tracks to have to be more effective and efficient in executing fires and targeting. The introduction of Marine littoral regiments and multi-domain task forces, so that we're thinking joint fires into all domains in the way that we're multi-domain have been significant innovations in ways that we have been more effective. In the way our alliances and partnerships have been affected in some of the posture moves that we've made. More access to the Sakishima Islands, to the Ryukyus, ECTA sites which are now reserved for humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, building partnerships through AUKUS, building partnerships through the Quad, through the Squad. In all of these ways we've made, and then other posture projects throughout the Pacific, places and emplacement of particular airfields, improvements to ports that improve our posture for our capability. But in some of the air, missile, maritime capabilities that are going to gain us the battle space in space, counter space, that give us the counter C5ISR capability for us to gain the space to be able to put the 21st century capability in action inside the first island chain while we are still capable. We are losing pace. And so those are the areas where we have to, we've got to double down on our ability, getting away from CRs as a part of it, becoming more agile in our acquisition, thinking differently about the weapon systems themselves is a part of it, embracing the 21st century and 21st century tools is a part of it, but also we have to accelerate some of our in situ programs as well. We have to act with a sense of urgency.
But sometimes it's not just weapon systems, sometimes it's actual U.S. troops. Do we need to send more Marines to Taiwan? Is that enough of a deterrent signal?
Well, what I would say, I'll defer to Admiral Paparo on whether we send Marines to Taiwan or not. But what I would say is the advantage lies with us because our last combat was captured on somebody's iPhone 14. The Chinese's last combat was captured on oil and canvas, and they should not forget that. It is easy to bluster, but it's another thing when you actually have to go toe to toe and go in harm's way. And we have a lengthy history of going in harm's way. In Iraq, in Afghanistan, we've built a culture of warrior excellence. We've built a culture of warfighting. We've built a culture of interoperability in the Joint Force. The PRC has not yet had to deal with that. They haven't had to deal with that in decades. So I would not undersell the value that our combat experience brings to this fight. Because again, their last combat was captured on oil and canvas.
We'll tell you that the object here, the policy of the United States of America has not changed. The policy of the United States of America is the 3 communiques, the Taiwan Relations Act, and the 6 assurances. We might remind ourselves of that. And so that is that the status quo does not change with the use of force. Sometimes we get so focused on Taiwan that we believe that Taiwan is the object. And I appreciate that for the Taiwanese, it's Taiwan's right of self-determination that is the object. And that is the policy of the United States. The 3 communiques is 1 China, 2, we'll have economic and we will have cultural relationships. The Taiwan Relations Act is that, or the Taiwan Relations Act is the part that relates to me, is that we will provide defensive articles and support and defensive services to Taiwan. The 3rd communique is that we will reduce that defensive support in proportion to the demilitarization of the Taiwan Strait. You can also appreciate what is implicit in that is the inverse. And then the 6 assurances inherent is that we won't reduce that in relation to relate to our relationship with the PRC, and we won't force Taiwan to negotiate with the PRC ourselves. Is kind of the big idea for the 6 assurances too. We sometimes get so wrapped up in the Taiwan question that we forget the policy of the United States of America. And for that reason too, we get into a misunderstanding loop with the PRC, who don't believe we don't believe the policy of the United States. But the policy has not changed.